Hello and welcome to Cybersecurity in Session with your host, Fred Cobb, EVP of Services and CISO at Infosystems. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm Fred Cobb, Executive Vice President and CISO for Infosystems. Today, Mr. Rob Ashcraft is joining me. Rob is our Senior Cybersecurity Strategist. Rob, thanks for hanging out today.
Yep. Thank you for having me on another episode. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. We're always excited to do these episodes. And we have a very important topic today for you.
Indeed. Yes,
that
we do.
is indeed protecting data. We're going to talk about in the few minutes that we have together today, really thinking about data as an asset. What is data? Why the cybercriminals are after it? How they can, either steal your data or place a wrapper around it, leaving it in place, but yet extort you. We'll look at defense in depth for how to protect your data as a digital asset and some other stuff. So, Rob, I'm going to throw it right at you, Gate. Let's talk about, when you think about digital data, what are some of the types of data? We talk about it, but let's define it. What is it?
So data assets really can refer to things like system files, or even application output files, documents, databases, even web pages that companies use to generate revenue from. Things that we think about in general would be like proprietary information, customer data, patient data, financial data, employee personnel data, company secrets, and things like that. So all of those are data assets and are really some of the most valuable assets in this technology era that we live in. And so I think one of the most important things is first off is the make sure are regarding their data as an asset, right? That they begin treating the data like an asset and becoming having a culture that is more data focused. And so when you have that data as an asset, you have to manage it like you would manage an asset.
Yeah, if you think about it, what is the currency of the cyber criminal when they're out there, performing these nefarious activities, whether through a ransomware attack where your data may remain in place, but it is encrypted in such a manner you can't get access to the data. So, we have extortion going on there. That's a form of, cyber criminal currency, so to speak. And also, if data is being stolen, actually exfiltrated out of the organization, where it's maybe it's both. Maybe they're taking a copy of your data, they're encrypting the data that is still at rest within your environment, but yet they are either threatening to or actually selling your data to the highest bidder out there, whether it's protected health information, whether it's credit card numbers. I read a case recently where a law firm down in Texas, this happened just a couple months ago, I think, where they got into the law firm. They sent them an actual screenshot of their file server saying, "Hey, we're here." Then they proceeded to do an entire data dump of the law firm's client files, all of their sensitive information, and post that data for sale on the dark web. Another situation with a law firm. I was doing some reconnaissance. I was doing an engagement for a law firm organization. So I was looking at recent activity around law firm ransomware and other types of attacks. There was a high profile law firm up in New York City with clients like Madonna, Bruce Springsteen, a lot of the very high paid sports celebrities, et cetera. They came in, proved they were there, actually stole their data. And I haven't seen any resolution on this, but last I heard, they were offering the data for $42 million was their starting bid.
Wow.
For that information. And at last time, again, I checked, the law firm had not agreed to pay any sort of ransom. They were sticking to their guns. We don't deal with terrorists, that kind of situation, but it just shows how valuable your digital assets are.
Absolutely. You were mentioning earlier, you said cyber criminals are using data as a currency, and you couldn't be more accurate. I mean, we think of data like credit card data, right? That's a little more obvious where, there maybe hackers put a skimmer on a card reader or some kind of I know there's one called Magacart. There's a Java script that's inserted into websites that are processing payments. That's one thing, and certainly a lot of that goes on. But just cyber criminals, I'm sorry, are selling personal information, PII. It's very valuable, and it's of course used for identity fraud and for other things. And but for companies, I mean, for organizations, are selling financial information, some of the things we mentioned earlier, and for they can be used for corporate fraud schemes, and proprietary information may be sold to competing organizations even abroad. So engineering designs or code theft, and then things like stealing credentials. So all of this has become currency for cyber criminals.
Sure. I was doing a speaking engagement just last week, and it was around the incident response front lines. We was taking a real microcosm of the incident response work that we do here at InfoSystems, and talking about some of the commonalities that were, in spite of the size of the organization or the type of industry, you see these things over and over again. But what really struck me as I was thinking about this podcast that we're doing now, in looking at the infection vector or the attack vector for 3 out of 4 of these, I used 4 examples. 3 out of 4 were attacked by the RIA ransomware, which is a very nasty variant of ransomware. So data is encrypted, systems are down, your business comes to a standstill. And the bad guys are turning around and trying to monetize that either through, pay me Bitcoin, pay me some, monetary amount. The fourth one in the example was a remote access Trojan attack, whereby they got into the organization for a period of time through gaining a username password of one of the principals in the organization, got on a server that had fleet card information and extracted out tons and tons of fleet card numbers that could be used for purchases at truck stops for fuel, services, food, you name it.
Yeah, so, I recall that organization took a huge hit, and so, they're finding different ways, right, to go about infiltrating and either stealing data that they can use or holding the data ransom, right, extorting the organizations with their data. And
I can't stress enough, if I said this every day, it wouldn't be enough, is that you're never too big to be under attack by the cyber criminal. You never are boring, regardless of industry. They're not interested in what I have. I'm a mom and pop shop. I don't have a lot of information that would be of value to a criminal. You can't have that mindset. You have to be of the mindset that you're going to be attacked, and you have to protect data as a digital asset. Rob, let's talk about some of the defense in depth. Different technologies, different things to think about as you're building those fences around your data as a digital asset.
So a lot of the things that we normally talk about, but for ransomware detection, things like endpoint. So some of the newer endpoint solutions that have AI built in that can detect these type of things, intrusion prevention systems, SIM solutions, which are security information and event monitoring, and now have something like from IDS to IPS, where there's an active agent that can do something about it. It's called SOAR, SOAR, which is security orchestration, automation, response. So it allows, if somebody's monitoring that, to go in and actually react quickly to a situation when it's detected. So things like that, access control. We talked a lot. I don't want to spend too much time on these, but we talk about things like principle of least privilege and revoking access, things of those type of measures. Alerting tools, certainly, they've been out for a number of years, 10, 12 years, different DLP technologies. And so something that's going to send an alert that's monitoring the data, and if data is copied or moved, or it allows some type of prevention measures, email security controls, phishing training. And some of the things I think we want to dig into a little deeper today would be like multi-factor authentication, encryption of data residing in the network or in flight, in and out of the network, and then also data classification and segmentation. So all are important, right? There is no silver bullet. There's no one answer to protecting against these, but it's defense in depth.
It's also important. I know we've been talking about data as a digital asset throughout this podcast, but a lot of companies still maintain hardware records, either out of necessity, some sort of mandate that you must, have physical records or hard copy data. So it's also important to be aware of your physical security. Someone can break into the organization, some physical means, and either copy or make off with, physical data as well that could be used against them at some point. You mentioned encryption both at rest, data sitting there on spinning on the hard drives or in the SSDs, on tapes, or encryption in flight. In other words, this data is moving through the ether. Make sure you've got some sort of not only authentication protocol, but actual encryption protocols on the data itself. So if it was compromised, it couldn't be read, by the bad guys. So it's all important stuff. You mentioned also maybe a different section or segmentation of the network. A lot of times it's, if you take maybe a medium to larger organization, you can't put that wrapper around the entire organization. Maybe you only have some type of data that needs to have those tighter security constraints. So think about setting up a security enclave where you're putting tighter constraints around that sensitive information.
Absolutely. No flat networks, right? Even smaller organizations can segment off pieces of where that sensitive data resides. If there's no need for everything and everyone to have access to it, then segment it off, right? And put some extra security around it.
Indeed. So just to wrap up, everybody needs to be thinking of the data that they have as a digital, true digital asset that has monetary value that represents a business risk if it were compromised. It could affect reputation, the ability to do business in the future, fines perhaps if it's a particular type of information such as healthcare data. So do everything possible out there to protect that data, understand what you have, understand that the bad guys want to trade in your data. So do everything you can to protect that information.
Yep.
Well, Rob, thanks for coming on the show today. We were brief, but I think we hit some really good points around data as a digital asset and what you can do to protect it, what you need to be thinking about. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, certainly a relevant topic these days, right? Because of all the ransomware going on. I appreciated what you said earlier that you can't think about this, would this ever happen? It's happening, right? And it's happening all the time. And so organizations absolutely must prepare and not keep their head in the sand. So, whether you're getting plans yourself, or you may want to look into engaging a cybersecurity subject matter expert on, hey, give us some ideas on ways that we can better protect and our data. How can we encrypt it? What does it mean to classify it? How can we segment it? There are subject matter experts out there that can help you with that, and either consult or actually help you do it. So, we encourage you to certainly not just think about it, but get busy on it.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. So thank you very much for that. And again, thank you for tuning in. We receive feedback, and we appreciate you writing in and posting information on our website about different topics that we'd like to hear about going forward. So thank you for your patronage, your participation in these meetings out there, those of you that are listening, and we will see you soon. Thank you.
All right.